an artifact, there should be a reason. Doesn't matter. Hope you guys are listening to all this ruckus. Sorcerer. Anything else has to be creatures. That'll be 17. There we go. Creature. Green. 1, 2. Doesn't say actually this deck. It is kind of insane. Alright. 2 is fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not really. Shark can kind of work instead of 2 of these. This is worse than now. Okay, what else do I gotta do? Not really. No, not really. Alright. Crew 1, 3 flyer. I like that. Collecting. You got the enchantment though, right? Or did I? Yeah, I took it. Alright. enchantment doesn't have the enchantment, even though it's a good card. Thurston should be Chandra. Alright, baby. There we go. Yeah, let's try high mana cost. Okay, boy. Hola. display gain capture. Okay, transform. Switch to screen. Alright. What about display capture? Switch to screen. Sandwich noise. Properties. Yeah, it's fine. I don't get it. Home. Oh, see, Gary, you're a good guy.
All right, in the air, where do these electrons come from that you said the photons interact with? The electrons are free electrons in the sense they're not owned by an atom. So an atom doesn't own all of its electrons. It has a certain number that make up the atom. And then around every atom, there's other electrons, okay, that aren't property of the atom. And again, if there's a lot of them, we call it charge. So but they're free, but they're not, they're loose. They're loosely bound. I don't know how, that's the best way. I think it's a nice way to say it. They're loosely bound to the atoms. And that's it. They lead to perpetual motion. They lead to perpetual motion. Well, where do Maxwell's, again, you say it, your assertions are not very useful. So you have to have a proof that Maxwell's equations lead to perpetual motion, because they don't. Maxwell's equations do not account for the origin of the force. So they can't possibly be blamed for perpetual motion, because they don't account for the force. Maxwell didn't call them virtual photons. He didn't call them ether. He wanted to. He called it nothing. He didn't account for the origin of the force. He explained what the force did. So he was doing the Newton thing. He didn't account for magnetism. He explained what it does. Just as Newton didn't account for gravity, he just explained what it does. So don't tell me that Maxwell's equations lead to perpetual motion, because they don't create any energy. They just explain how the energy will be distributed. You get double out what you put in. That never happens, so it's just nonsense. You don't put anything in. Again, all the equations are just used to state you have a certain amount of an N40 magnet or an N30. You have an electrical potential of 1,000 volts. It doesn't explain where the voltage came from. It doesn't explain where the magnetism comes from. It's saying when you have these quantities, this is what you can expect as an outcome. So again, there's nothing in Maxwell's equations that deals with causes. I think some misunderstand the photon.
Some.
Well, obviously, I'm arguing that you all misunderstand it. Certainly you,
exactly.
Chicken Little.
Some. Chicken
I mean, it's only energy and a force. You don't see it until it interacts with matter. Well, that's correct. Photons can't be detected except completely. You can't brush up against a photon and say, oh, I felt the photon. No, it either hits an electron or you'll never know it existed. That's the two circumstances. You'll never see it, never know it happened. It'll never have any presence as a real thing in the universe. It'll be completely invisible, or it'll hit an electron. That's it. Otherwise, there's no such thing. I mean, even this laser beam, I'm not seeing the laser beam. I'm just seeing light that hits a particle of dust and flies into my eye. The photon I see didn't do this. It's not going straight across this beam, right? The photon I'm seeing, all right, the ones you're seeing right now in this screen are ones that died inside the camera hitting electrons. They never went all the way. They stopped going this way and they went right into the camera. So yes, you're correct. All right, you don't see it until it interacts with matter. Your detector eye, well, I don't know. There's no point in putting two slit in there. There's no two slit in your eye. A structure a structured magnetic field form from matter. There's no magnetic field in your eye, so I don't know where you went. There's no association between photons of light and magnetism. Magnetism is completely different functional force. It's created by segregating the two forces from each other. Photons are strictly electron force. There's no proton force in a photon. They're always black, and they're never red. So photons are made out of only the energy that affects electrons. And magnetism is just segregating the red force from the black force. So you're mixing two subjects there, and that's very messy. There's no electromagnetic fields. There's no, none of that stuff exists. There's only force. So if force bits can only interact with each other via matter bits, yes, electrons and protons, does it follow that matter bits can only interact with each other via, yes, as I just pointed out, matter bits have no mass. They have no anything without the force. So the force has to, for matter to move, it has to either have a force reflect off of it, and then it moves a little, or it has to absorb the force and hold it and then move. But an electron can't do that perpetually because it doesn't have a mechanism that allows it to hold the force. So it loses its acceleration very quickly. So does a proton. So this is where it gets a little complicated. You have to really follow along. The pieces inside of what we traditionally call matter, the electrons and the protons, I can't throw one in space and it keeps going. I can't throw one to the moon. Can't throw a proton to the moon, can't throw an electron to the moon. Even with all the shuttle rockets in the universe, it can't get it there because I can't give it perpetual motion. I can't fire the rocket, get it going, and it maintains its velocity. Neither one of them can maintain their velocity. But an atom can, or the nucleus of a helium atom can, because it has a structure inside of it that allows the electron force to bounce in this kind of manner where it hits up twice as much as it hits down. All right. Let's see. Regarding the double slit experiment, so you said that the photons are really just interacting with electrons. Yes, not the electrons, but electrons on the surface of the material. Well, associated with the material, yes. They are passing through by following different angles. That's right. When they hit an electron, they move a specific angle. And if they hit 5 electrons, that means they move more. They add the angles up. So that the object, the light that goes all the way to the edge of the pattern is light that probably hit 30 electrons. All right. Let's see. So inertia is just matter kind of riding on the force bit. Well, like I said, when you use the word matter, we're already in trouble, right? Does this matter mean atoms or does matter mean electrons and protons? So electrons and protons have to ride on voltage. That means you have to keep pushing them. You have to keep shooting bullets at them to keep them going. They can only be accelerated. They can't hold velocity. But the matter bit can absorb the force, and that is the atomic type bit, can absorb the force in the sense the force gets locked inside of it, trapped, and the force can keep it going, like a little motorboat can keep going upstream. So if you have a motor, you can keep going upstream. If you don't have a motor, I have to keep pushing you.
It's just
Let's see.
logical.
So force bits are everywhere in space. Yes, just like the cosmic background radiation. So if you just thought of the cosmic background radiation times c squared, that is a bunch more of it in this really benign form of gravity, that is force without a frequency, that yes, that's all the force in the universe. That makes everything move. That external energy, that external pressure is what creates all of the movement. but doesn't the double slit experiment work for other particles? Well, as I've just pointed out in the beginning of this video, it doesn't work for radio waves. They've perverted the experiment by using sound waves carried on frequencies rather than just detecting the radio waves themselves, and it won't work. The radar experiments are a deception. Why do they do it that way? You can ask the simple question. Why do they always put a sound wave on top carried on the frequency? Why aren't they just detecting the energy? If they detected the raw energy, they would see there is no interference pattern. And obviously all these particles are at a different frequency, and they have to be measured with different devices. Do those with other particles, I don't know what that means. Let's see. But doesn't the double slit experiment work for other particles and molecules besides protons? Again, when it works for electrons, the pattern is completely different. The central maxima is much dimmer, and it's a perfect gradation in the pattern, very smooth. Photons, not smooth at all, very harsh bars. So I'm just saying, no, the patterns aren't the same, and the cause of the pattern is fundamentally different. Electrons hitting electrons is a lot different than photons hitting electrons. Photons hit electrons. Electrons never hit electrons. They bounce off each other's force. So that's why it's a smoother pattern. Anyway, but I already explained that in this very video. The other particles and molecules besides photons. Do these other particles interact with electrons in a similar way to as photons? No, as I explained it earlier, but I'll explain it. Electrons are emitting force. So think of them as emitting bullets. And they're bullets that each other are sensitive to. So when two electrons move into each other, the bullets from one hit the electrons. So they get pushed by those bullets. So the two electrons never interact. They always bounce off the bullets the other guy's shooting. So they create a pattern for a different reason. It's fundamentally different physics. Electron on electron is fundamentally different physics than photon on electron. One is a force interaction between two, a force and a matter bit, and the other is a force interaction between two matter bits that are emitting force. Yeah. All right. Okay, so there are two types of matter bit, proton and electron, and something else, neutrons. So I've already explained, neutrons are just protons and electrons very close to each other. So neutrons are, they've already detected this, that when a neutron decays, that is when they strip it out of an atom and it falls apart, what they get as a product is a proton and an electron. So it seems quite obvious that that's all they are. A neutron is just a hybrid. It's just an electron and a neutron very close to each other. And so it's a conduit. I've explained this in previous videos. It's in the overview video in some of them. But, you know, it's a little bit complicated. But if you have an electron between two protons, so here's a neutron, electron and a proton. Here's a neutron. Here's another proton. The catch is that any force that's red leaks out the black. So all the red force leaks out this black thing. So all the proton force leaks out the electron, and all the electron force leaks out the protons. So that means that these protons can get extremely close to each other if they have an electron between them. So that's the strong nuclear force. So they think of it as a strong force, but it's really the weakest force in the universe, because all the force is escaping, and that's why everything can get very close to each other. So they think it's a strong force pushing them together, but it's really the absence of force between them that's allowing them to be so close together. So the strong force, again, see, they got push-pull wrong, they got particle wave wrong, they got time dilation wrong, time isn't a dimension, and everything they could get 50-50 right, they got 50-50 wrong. And this is another example. The strong force is actually the weakest force. All right. Hey, Gary, in your theory, do orbitals, tricky word, have those weird shapes? No. I learned about in chemistry. Or are they generally spherical shells? They're neither. The real function is magnetism. That's what really holds all this stuff together. So I could draw perhaps a quick drawing so you could try to illustrate it with maybe 5 electrons just for fun. And I need a little red marker, I think. Yeah. And maybe black for fun. All right, I don't even know if you'll see this, but we'll go for it anyway. So the idea of an atom would be you have the nucleus here, okay, which could be the protons. And then these are the electrons. I would argue that none of these electrons are moving, okay? They're all frozen in magnetic positions. So there's a force between the electron and the proton that's attractive, okay? That means the force is leaking out. The red force leaks out the electron. The black force leaks out the proton. That means there's low force between them, so they want to pull together. So they want to get pushed by the external force into this low pressure. The electrons hate each other, so they have bullets that bounce back and forth, and they never stop. They just keep going back and forth. So as they get closer together, the pressure gets higher and higher as they get closer together. So that's the repulsive force between the electrons. No leakage. The black force just keeps bouncing back and forth. So they're all in this tension. So all the electrons are in a tension. They're all attracted to this proton, but they're repelled by the other electrons. So they can't go in because that increases the force with these electrons. So they can't go closer to the proton because this force gets too strong. And they can't run away. This force can't push the electron out because this force is too strong. So the electrons just stay in tension. They're locked in tension. So when an electron is shared, it's literally shared. The other atom is actually sharing the electron in tension going this way. So this is the geometry. The geometry is fixed. There are no shells. There is no movement. There's just vibrations and tension. Everything's just vibrating in the tension. The pressure. Okay. I think I answered that. Purple again. I don't know what that means. So, thank you. Not very useful. All right. So Venus just doesn't want to. She says she's a girl, and you're behaving cliche like a girl.
Oh, I thought it was like a guy.
Amazing. I mean,
Is that a true thing?
Can't stay on the subject, can you? Just got to turn it into a cartoon, huh? I'll put you in a timeout. Jesus. I mean, fuck. All right, so yay, disco, whoop, whoop, whoop. That's just, I mean, you all just get rid of. I mean, fuck you. Fuck you people. I don't know, what is wrong with your brains? You can't go find some Facebook page to go, talk about your poo and shit? I mean, just so fucking retarded. All right, thanks. My apology if it seems dense, if I seem dense. I think I'm trying to identify the matter bit carries velocity. I am missing something. Yeah, well, the electrons and protons can't carry velocity. They have to be accelerated. That's why electrons only move when they're in a high voltage. You have to put a voltage in, and the voltage is the force. So you have to push them with a force constantly or they stop moving. Same is true for protons. So those things you can't throw one into space and it keeps going. It won't do it. Momentum, inertia, okay, is a real thing. If you have a velocity, you have it because you captured force. So when you see the space shuttle with a giant flame coming out of its ass, think of it like there's a flame going into the space shuttle. You don't see it, but that's actually going into the matter of the space shuttle. The equal but opposite reaction is the space shuttle is absorbing energy going that way, and it's not releasing it. It's holding it. That flame doesn't go nowhere. That flame stays inside the shuttle, and that's why the shuttle keeps moving, is because it's holding that flame. All right. Matter, bit, and velocity. I'm missing something fundamental about your theory. I should watch the overview again. There's a few of them, but yeah, I mean, I sort of covered everything in a video somewhere, but yeah, I mean, obviously I don't think you should have to watch 700 videos, but, or 800, but so look, my early videos were just wrong about so much of this. So yeah, but the last, 20 or 30 videos were pretty good videos. All right, I see. Thanks. Let's see. Potential divergence difference. Potential difference equals voltage. Yes. Well, voltage equals force. And, in the simplest terms, it's just increasing the pressure, and the pressure is increased by bullets. So it's more bullets, or it's bullets bouncing back and forth faster. I mean, you can increase pressure two ways. If you have two things and you have pressure between them, you can put more things. So if I have two tennis balls and I have a ping pong ball bouncing between them, there's a certain pressure that's pushing the tennis balls apart, right? Now, if I add more ping pong balls, well, that'll make more pressure. But if I put the two tennis balls closer to each other, that would also create more pressure because now the ping pong balls are bouncing much faster and they're having impacts more often. And impacts are when you have a thing called energy. So it's the number of impacts that define the potential, the power, and that's voltage.
This guy is so mad.
Potential difference just means the number of impacts with matter.
Anything else, really.
So as you increase voltage, you're increasing the number of times the matter is getting hit by force. All right, been thinking about the basic geometry in your theory. You seem to lean to square. Well, I just think square is simpler, and I think round is always just square fooling you with a leasing. Even the Earth, I don't think the Earth travels a circular path, perfectly circular. It goes a bunch of little straight lines that end up looking like a circle.
Which is
seems square for the trap argument, which makes sense. Well, the trap is obviously, even this is a trap, back and forth, right? This is a trap. If I had three things, proton, electron, proton, electron, this would be the trap. Yeah. I can have three things, four things. U-turn, that would be the trap. Except it doesn't go free here. There's an electron here. So that could be the trap. Or the trap can be a square. So I'm just saying the trap can be an octagon. The trap could be a zoctagon. The trap just really represents the fact that the energy doesn't get out. It doesn't go free. It's stuck in a amount of space that it just retravels the same space over and over again. That's the trap. In your theory, square makes sense. I imagine that before the trap made 4 turns, it may have already been doing 3. Right, it can do any number. It can do 2. 3 is the key number because 3 is the one I was talking about before about what creates motion. So if I have a proton here, an electron up here, and an electron up here, the energy is going this 90-degree angle. And the force keeps hitting this way, and it keeps hitting this way. And I'm arguing that this 90-degree angle doesn't create force this way. It's just a rule. If it does, it's only half the force. Turning something 90 degrees is only half as hard as hitting something this way. So the electrons are being pushed this way more than the proton is being pushed that way, and that's what equals, that's what gives you velocity in a direction. So I'm sort of arguing that this double thing, this V shape, is essentially what creates everything that can hold velocity. All the things that hold velocity hold it because they have a bunch of these V's in them where the energy is, the atoms have turned, and this thing is going, the V is pointing in the opposite direction of their movement. So the V is the opposite, they're moving in the opposite direction of that sail, so to speak. but that's the engine of velocity. So when you're being moved, the reason why it takes a while for you to get up to speed, when you're being accelerated, you don't accelerate instantly, is because it takes time for that energy to be configured into these V's.
No, useless 2-1. I'm at 1-0. Oh my god.
I think the truth will be very close to something like that.
Sucks.
I feel fairly confident that that is that describes the essence of the fact that this is all about geometry.
So far, 2 hours cleaning dishes. That's life right there.
Little break. It's nice. Thank you. Appreciate it. Weather's improving. Okay. Been thinking about basic geometry in your theory. You already did that. Okay. Okay. So I found out that there's another person, Holiday. Holiday's an asshole. In addition to Piero. Again, Holiday hasn't made a video in 6 months or something. Honest question. Why do you spend so much time on people you think are complete idiots? How do I spend so much time on those people?
They're supposed to be the smart ones. Like Piero.
I mean, obviously, if somebody makes an argument, I'll respond to their argument. But exactly how am I haven't spent any time on Holiday in the last 2 months because he hasn't made any points or made any videos.
Title. He's a
and
dumbass.
Piero came into the room, so I talked to him because it was in the fucking room. But otherwise, I don't bother with him. So, you know, and again, how is this on the subject? It's not. You're not on the subject. You know, just crazy. I shouldn't respond to people who say I'm wrong or I made a mistake or I did something to. I shouldn't respond to people who do that.
No, well,
no, I think those are exactly the people I should respond to. Someone got you a snowball, Gary. Working well. No, it's not a snowball. It's a real fucking mic. A real Yeti thingy. It's a big, monstrous super mic. When I go back to making news videos, maybe I'll keep the mic in front of me because I'll look all, you know, respectable. Look at that big mic. Yeah, I wish I had a big mic like that. You know.
Just change it to you know. Just change it.
But off the subject.
See what happens.
But yeah, it really is nice. Very nice. I mean, I had gotten the cheap, you know, $1 sound card to actually work pretty good, but yeah, this is better. So I can yell, and you know, it doesn't go all wrong, which is good. So yeah, it's very nice. It's very, very nice.
We don't get welcome to the.
It was from the physics community, the people in the physics room, that I did get the mic. So, an acknowledgement to this Draft Science channel created the improvement in my,
that's nothing right there.
you know, my video production. So yay for physics. Physics did it. Power of physics produced a new microphone. All right, the break has lasted long enough. Somebody could type something. Then I won't have to go think of something to rag about. Oh, I should post a link to the Ken Wheeler video, but I think everybody's seen it. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure. But any Ken Wheeler fans out there, go look up whatever his name is, Larry something or other, a photographer. And he made a video about Ken. It just, you know, I mean, Ken Wheeler's just got so much of an ego. He can't admit that he totally fucked up. That he let some guy totally game him, and that he totally just went way over the top and totally exaggerated everything. The guy wasn't having cancer surgery. The guy wasn't doing it. It's none of this stuff. He made this whole preposterous scene, and he was wrong about all of it. And he won't just admit, oh, I fucked up. So he might get sued, which is funny. But on his videos, it's just so funny because obviously the people who are kind of pissed off are all down rating all his videos now. And so now he has the same number of upvotes as downvotes on every video. And yeah, and a lot of his listeners have no clue. They haven't figured out what's going on. They think, oh, people don't like your your wooey religious theories, and that's why they're downvoting your videos. Now it has nothing to do with this wooey Buddhism. No, anyway, it's just kind of funny that he's finally getting what he deserves, which is a little bit of payback for being a. He's constantly exaggerating. I mean, this whole gold thing, he goes, I've proven that you can collect more gold, and I've proven it. Hasn't proven anything.
You can create it though. But you don't have to collect it.
All right, let's get physical. So I don't know. I mean, Venus, you're just going to keep doing retarded stuff? I mean, you really want me to block you? I mean, I tend to want to give girls the benefit of the doubt, but come on.
Girls, hey.
All right. Let's see. Have you got any experiments you'd like to do or seen done? Yeah, well, the radar one I'd like to do. I just don't want to spend $300 on equipment to do it. You can do it with an AM radio, but I have to transmit a very strong signal. And I'm a little, I don't know if I should be able to make an AM transmitter. It shouldn't be that difficult. But I want to do the experiment well enough so when I prove it, without question. But that's a real doable experiment just to prove that this has nothing to do with interference. It has to do with jamming radio signals. I mean, it just has absolutely nothing to do with radio signals interfering. It has to do with radio signals jam. Let's see. Any outstanding questions regarding your own take on physics? Well, there's lots of stuff, I mean, but I do have to find the experiments that'll disprove, unfortunately. But they're hard. It's like I said, you can't disprove relativity, because I can't do any speed of light experiments, that's for sure. Like I said, doing a simple experiment on my porch, I've demonstrated the whole problem with interferometers. I mean, I proved that you could split light 50-50 with a plain piece of glass, that you don't need anything called a beam splitter. And that a beam splitter can only mess up the beam splitter that's a plain piece of glass. You can only make the beam splitter worse by putting half silvering on it or by creating a prism. So it can't possibly, this notion of what a beam splitter is, I think I've proven, is just bullshit, absolute bullshit. People have I had the impression that you had to do something special to create a beam splitter. There's absolutely nothing special about it. It's a simple function of surfaces. And two glass surfaces, the front and the back, will do 25%, 25%, and it'll give you 50% of the light will be reflected. But that's a whole nother misnomer in physics, is that surfaces are really where the light is refracted. And it's really important how far away the surfaces are, and a lot of things decide, it's all optics. I mean, it really is optics. It's not physics in that sense. It's all about these internal reflections. So anyway, I'm just saying that I think I've destroyed the field of interferometry in the sense I've destroyed their explanation of what's causing the pattern. And that the pattern isn't about two light beams being out of alignment. It has to do with how much the light diverges, and they're measuring the divergence of the light. They're not measuring the out of phaseness of light. So they've way exaggerated the accuracy of their instrument.
So far, I'm living, so
let's
do
see.
whatever you want.
Ken is a
But
fat turd, but I'm convinced that draft science addendum is a Chinese fact psyop. Well, again, you want me to play with this mushy text? What do you want me to say? Fuck you again? You know,
that's all
I'm really
you
not
gotta
interested
do.
in
Choose your true targets.
jokes, especially bad ones.
Indestructible.
So I guess it's goodbye this time.
Fucking fair,
See ya, Electron Vape.
I'm just gonna leave. That's easy. And pick another game. I'm not gonna deal with jokes.
Did you get a chance to look up that video, Why Can't We Find a Theory of Everything, Eric Weinstein?
Fine.
I guess not, but I think I've already seen it as stated. So,
that's simple.
But yes, I will revisit the subject. I'm sure it's a. I mean, you know, they can't because they're not willing to do. They're not willing to follow evidence. That's why they can't find it. It's because they keep jumping evidence rather than following evidence. Put simply, I should have a file open where I could put the link, but well, they'll save it in my clipboard probably. I keep forgetting Linux has a nice little clipboard feature that saves your clippings. It's, you know, I remember I used to use that all the time, like when I had Windows 95 or something. I had a little add-on that did that, and that was really quite useful. And then it wouldn't work in XP, so I had to quit using it. And it's just funny now to have it again. I don't use it. You know, I can't get used to, oh yeah, I could just go get my clip from there. I saved that. Anyway, I like your explanation of interferometers. Do you think the entire reasoning behind interferometer waves in light is bogus? Well, I'm saying the theory of interference as being the function is bogus. And I would argue that that makes bogus the idea that they're measuring, you know, 20 or 30 nanometer differences in distance. So they think they can measure 20 nanometers of a wavelength difference between the two beams of light, 20 nanometers, very small distance. So they think they're doing this, you know, millionth of a millimeter kind of measurement, and they're really only doing billionth of a millimeter, and they're really only doing something that might be 10, you know, something 10 or 100 times less tiny in terms of a movement. Their accuracy is way exaggerated because they think they're actually seeing the difference, you know, between tiny changes in light beams, and they're not. Sounds like it would be if it's discrete bits. Well, I don't think discrete bits is the point. The point is that whether you think of them as discrete bits or waves or any other kind of bullshit, the point is that it's the divergence of those rays that they're measuring, not the out of phaseness of the rays. They're both measuring tools, but one of the tools is much less accurate, much less, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word for smaller scales on a ruler? It's less granular. It's less. It's a word for that. Anyway, it's not as accurate as they think it is. I'm just, you know, when they did this whole argument, you know, the LIGO people say things like, we can measure the thickness of a butt hair on Alpha Centauri. You know, and you're like, what are you talking about? Oh, sure you can. You know, preposterous claims about how small a thing they can measure. And it's all based on just a theoretical notion that, yes, we're measuring out of phaseness of light beams. And so their assumption that that's what they're doing has defined how accurate their ruler is. But if they're wrong about their assumption, then the ruler isn't that good. There's no way to fact check them because it's all just a claim based on their assumptions. It's not a claim based on evidence. They never proved their interferometer by swinging a Volkswagen over the tube. That's all they'd have to do to prove how accurate it was. Is all they have to do is swing a Volkswagen over the top of one of the tubes. And if their machine can detect it, then they know they can actually sense this tiny bit of gravity. But clearly they haven't never done a test like that. They never did a land-based test to demonstrate how sensitive their machine was. Not a single one. And right there should make you skeptical. When you don't even test your instrument on something available, that's pretty obvious, right? Let's see. I'm just super curious how you'd react to his take on it. Thanks. Yes, well, like I said, I think I did a video. I don't know. You could type Weinstein into my videos, draft science and Weinstein, and see if any of my videos come up. On a YouTube search, because it sounds familiar. That's all I'm saying. Maybe it's not, but it sounds familiar. Do you do live shows on ephilism? No. I don't think it would work as well. I used to do live rooms, but YouTube made that impossible because it lets the trolls destroy the room. So there's no point. You can't do live rooms on YouTube, open rooms. And I find discussion with more than 2 people at a time always gets sidetracked, so that doesn't work either. But I'm willing to have conversations about ephilism with people. So if somebody wants to talk about it, I'll talk about ephilism with people. I'll debate them, or I will whatever. But I just don't think it's very fruitful for me to do this comment kind of thing on a philosophical subject. Philosophy is a little deeper than this typey stuff. It's just more, I don't know if it's not deeper, that's the wrong way to say it. The arguments are just more complicated, and the real problem is just communicating with people. So the real subject is always just how do you get through the cement head psychology of the intransient idiot, the idiot who knows nothing about subjects but has opinions. How do you argue with idiots who have very little knowledge and very strong opinions? Because that's really the only problem. The arguments are so simple and so basic that anybody being honest can't miss them, and it's only assholes who can miss it. So Stephen Coda, right? Nicely done. I don't know what that's regarding, but thank you. I try to nicely do things.
Give a live link.
Mostly. So, half-hour warning. I do have to go around 10 o'clock. So, enough time for another cigarette. I'll smoke them all in 3 hours, and then I'll be out of cigarettes for 3 months again. But I just love cigarettes. Love them, love them, love them. Got the filter off. Just nasty, stupid invention filters. Just put enough to stop the tobacco from going in your lips. But not enough to stop any of the good poison. And it feels like it's leaking too. They're all broken. Close enough. Very bad habit, by the way. Don't ever get addicted to nicotine. Just saying, as an addict, it's the meaning of my life. But that's only because I'm an addict that it has any meaning. No other reason. It's stupid. It's wasteful. It's not good for you. It burns holes in stuff. Every now you burn your penis. I mean, nothing good about cigarette smoking.
Every now and then.
Except when you're addicted. It does give
Kind
life
of.
meaning.
It's kind of over. Yeah. I'm just gonna give up. Jesus. I mean, everybody's
Good
just
for doing
playing.
physics, actually. I mean, I have to admit that probably, yeah, I probably wouldn't have been able to unify physics without nicotine. Probably nicotine did it. I wasn't smart enough on my own. So, well, the vape, you did vape with nicotine in it, or did you do vape with flavors? I mean, obviously, you got addicted to nicotine vape. It's kind of a weird thing to do, to get addicted to nicotine vape, because I imagine when you vape nicotine and you weren't addicted to cigarettes, it got to make you sick a little bit, you know. So, I mean, you know, even getting addicted to cigarettes is a little bit raunchy at first. I mean, the first couple of cigarettes are pretty horrible. And then after that, they're the most beautiful thing ever invented. So, but I would imagine vaping would be even more obnoxious. Vaping nicotine if I wasn't addicted. Ew. Ew. Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like, everybody's different. You know, obviously I'm a nicotaholic. You know, so there's no little amount of nicotine for me. It's just me and nicotine always got along. Never had a bad cigarette in my life. It's best friend I ever knew was nicotine. Yeah, I don't know if it makes me feel good, but it sure does something to the brain. It just makes it work better. I can see clearly now through the nicotine fog. Ooh, cramp in my leg. Oh, oh, ow, 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 ow. I had a feeling that might happen. I was standing on a sloped surface all day today, all morning. It's probably very bad. My muscles. Oh, it's probably good for them. They got exercise, but yeah, too much exercise. So anyway, come on. Physics. Physics. Please, please, please. Questions, comments, something.
My ass hurts.
28 viewers. It seems I'm stuck at it's like my peak. I hit 30 and then it drops to 28. 30 and 28. Yeah.
There we go.
I have to get a larger audience to annoy.
Let you get away.
27. Declining. Yes, well, the conversation is sort of running down. So I have to make up something, I guess. All right, what other subjects are there that I'm working on? My crappy little notes way over here if there's something else. Blight of the Gibites. Oh, that's something else. Glibites. Yeah, different subject. Yeah.
He's black.
Let's see. I love a tour of your home. Yeah, we're not getting that. It's like the peeling ceiling. It's not a. It's like a tour of a. Well, whatever. It's my home, so I'm not going to complain. But can you say something about looking for falsification versus confirmation? I don't know. I just don't like getting stuck in that kind of crap. I mean, the evidence is the evidence. There's either a lot of it or there's none of it. You know, it's like evolution has a lot of evidence. Darwin provided a lot of circumstantial evidence, and then we got a lot of hard science that backed up Darwin. And there's just a difference between hard evidence and weak evidence. And a lot of this...
Yeah, you like epigenetics, I know, right? Jesus Christ. 1983, epigenetics. So fucking obvious. You get to understand why they work out your people, your civilians, to for the military. There we go. Where's my playlist? Best love songs. Alright.
Spent 24 hours, I need more hours with you.
Okay.
Spent the weekend getting even. Ooh.
I'm not gonna make it for you.
We spent the late nights making things right between us. But now it's all good, babe. Roll that backward, babe, and play me close. Cause girls like you run around with guys like me till sundown. When I come through, I need a girl like you, yeah, yeah. Girls like you love fun and yeah, me do what I want. When I come through, I need a girl like you, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I need a girl like you, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I need a girl like you. I spent last night on the last flight to you. We took a whole day up, trying to get way up. Ooh. We spent the daylight trying to make things right between us. And now it's all good, baby. Roll that backward, babe, and let me close. Yeah, cause girls like you roll around with guys like me till sundown. When I come through, I need a girl like you, yeah, yeah. Girls like you love fun and yeah, me do what I want. When I come through, I need a girl like you, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I need a girl like you, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I need a girl like you, yeah, yeah. I need a girl like you, yeah, yeah. I need a girl like you. Maybe it's 6:45. Maybe I'm barely alive. Maybe you're taking my shit for the last time. Yeah. Maybe I know that I'm drunk. Maybe I know you're the one. Maybe I'm thinking it's better if you drive. Oh, cause girls like you run around with guys like me till sundown. When I come through, I need a girl like you, yeah. Cause girls like you run around with guys like me till sundown. When I come through, I need a girl like you, yeah, yeah. Girls like you love fun, yeah, me do what I want. When I come through, I need a girl like you, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I need a girl like you, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I need a girl like you. Say, hey, hey now, baby. Oh, mama, don't play now, baby. Say, hey, hey now, baby. So let's get one thing straight now, baby. Tell me if you love me or not, love me or not, love me or not. At the house on you, am I lucky or not, lucky or not, lucky or not? You gotta tell me if you love me or not, love me or not, love me or not. I'm wishing for you, am I lucky or not, lucky or not, lucky or not? I'm wishing for you. Try to do what lovers do. I'm wishing for you.
hey now, baby. You gon' make me hit you with that lay down, baby. Ooh, say, hey now, baby. You know what I need off the gate now, baby.
Tell me if you love me or not, love me or not, love me or not. I built a house on you, am I lucky or not, lucky or not, lucky or not? You gotta tell me if you love me or not, love me or not, love me or not. I'm wishing for you, am I lucky or not, lucky or not, lucky or not? I'm wishing for you. Try to do what I always do. I'm wishing for you. What loves do, what loves do, what loves do. Are we too grown for games? Are we too grown to play around? Young enough to chase, but old enough to know better.
Are we too grown to change? Are we too grown to mess around? And ooh, and I can't wait forever, baby. Both of us should know better.
Ooh, 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 been wishing for you. Ooh, ooh, try to do what lovers do. Ooh, 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 been wishing for you. Ooh, ooh, try to do what lovers do. Ooh, 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 been wishing for you. Try to do what lovers do. Been wishing for you. Try to do what lovers do. Been wishing for you. Try to do what lovers do.
Yeah, that's game over. Usually in Magic, if you stop somebody from attacking,
I count the ways I let you down. On my fingers and toes, but I'm running out. Clever words can't help me now. I grip you tight, but you're slipping out. I remember your eyes were so bright when I first met you, so in love that night. And now I'm kissing your tears goodnight. And I can't take it, you're even perfect when you cry. Beautiful goodbye. Dripping from your eyes. Your beautiful goodbye. It's dripping from your eyes. Oh yeah. When did the rain become a storm? When did the clouds begin to form? Yeah, we got knocked off course by a natural force, and we'll be swimming when it's gone. And I remember your eyes were so bright when I first met you, so in love that night. And now I'm kissing your tears goodnight. And I can't take it, you're even perfect when you cry. Beautiful goodbye. It's dripping from your eyes. Your beautiful goodbye. It's dripping from your eyes. Oh yeah. All the pain you try to hide shows through your mascara lines as they stream so bright. I remember your eyes were so bright. When I first met you, how in love were we that night? And now I'm kissing your tears goodnight. And I can't take it, you're even perfect when you cry. You're beautiful goodbye. Oh yeah, it's dripping from your eyes. You're beautiful goodbye. Whoa, it's dripping from your eyes. You're standing there with your cigarette, looking at me like we've never met. I know I fucked up, so I'll take the blame. And I don't expect you to let me explain. You can't forgive, I can't forget. Just too different now. But I miss you in that denim jacket. I'll let you get away, I'll let you get away. Do you still wear that denim jacket? I'll let you get away, I'll let you get away. Cause the color of that blue sky just reminds me of our goodbye. Do you still wear that denim jacket? I'll let you get away, I'll let you get away. Now someone else is taking you home. Yeah, hands on the waist I used to hold. And I know it's my fault, I'm late to the dance, cause you couldn't wait for me. And I understand why you never look back once that door closed. I know you're just too different now. But I miss you in that denim jacket. I'll let you get away, I'll let you get away. Do you still wear that denim jacket? I'll let you get away, I'll let you get away. Cause the color of that blue sky just reminds me of our goodbye. Do you still wear that denim jacket? I'll let you get away, I'll let you get away. You're standing there with your cigarette, yeah, looking at me like we've never met. But I miss you in that denim jacket. I'll let you get away, I'll let you get away. Do you still wear that denim jacket? I'll let you get away, I'll let you get away. Cause the color of that blue sky just reminds me of our goodbye. Do you still wear that denim jacket? I'll let you get away, I'll let you get away. Do you still, do you still, do you? listening to our favorite song. When I saw you in that dress, looking so beautiful, I don't deserve this. Darling, you look perfect tonight. A soapbox I can stand upon, but God gave me a stage, a guitar and a song. My daddy told me, son, don't you get involved in politics, religions, other people's quarrels. I'll paint the picture, let me set the scene. I know when I have children they will know what it means, and I'll pass on the things my family's given to me. Just love and understanding, positivity. We could change this whole world with a piano, add a bass, some guitar, grab a beat, and away we go. I'm just a boy with a one-man show. No university, no degree, but Lord knows everybody's talking about exponential growth and the stock market crashing in their portfolios, while I'll be sitting here with a song that I wrote, saying love could change the world in a moment. But what do I know? Love can change the world in a moment. But what do I know? Love can change the world in a moment. The revolution's coming, it's a minute away. I saw people marching in the streets today. You know we are made up of love and hate, but both of them are balanced on a razor blade. I'll paint the picture, let me set the scene. I know I'm all for people following their dreams. Just remember life is more than fitting in your jeans. It's love and understanding, positivity. We could change this whole world with a piano, add a bass, some guitar, grab a beat, and away we go. I'm just a boy with a one-man show. No university, no degree, but Lord knows everybody's talking about exponential growth and the stock market crashing in their portfolios, while I'll be sitting here with a song that I wrote, saying love could change the world in a moment. But what do I know? Love can change the world in a moment. But what do I know? Love can change the world in a moment. I'll paint the picture, let me set the scene. You know the future's in the hands of you and me, so let's all get together, we can all be free. Spread love and understanding, positivity. We could change this whole world with a piano, add a bass, some guitar, grab a beat, and away we go. I'm just a boy with a one-man show. No university, no degree, but Lord knows everybody's Everybody's talking about exponential growth and the stock market crashing in their portfolios, while I'll be sitting here with a song that I wrote, saying love could change the world in a moment. But what do I know? Love can change the world in a moment. But what do I know? Love can change the world in a moment. But what do I know? You are the one, girl, and you know that it's true. I'm feeling younger every time that I'm alone with you. We were sitting in a parked car, stealing kisses in the front yard. We got questions we should not ask, but how would you feel if I told you I loved you? It's just something that I want to do. I'll be taking my time, spending my life falling deeper in love with you. So tell me that you love me too. In the summer, as the lilacs bloom, love flows deeper than the river. Every moment that I spend with you, we were sat upon our best friend's roof. I had both of my arms round you, watching the sunrise replace the moon. How would you feel told you I loved you? It's just something that I want to do. I'll be taking my time, spending my life falling deeper in love with you. So tell me that you love me too. Sitting in a parked car, stealing kisses in the front yard. We got questions we should not ask. How would you feel if I told you I loved you? It's just something that I want to do. Taking my time, spending my life falling deeper in love with you. So tell me that you love me too. Tell me that you love me too. legs don't work like they used to before, and I can't sweep you off of your feet. Will your mouth still remember the taste of my love? Will your eyes still smile from your cheeks? Darling, I will be loving you till we're 70. And baby, my heart could still fall as hard at 23. And I'm thinking about how people fall in love in mysterious ways. Maybe just the touch of a hand. Well, me, I fall in love with you every single day, and I just wanna tell you I am. So honey, now take me into your loving arms. Kiss me under the light of 1,000 stars. Place your head on my beating heart. I'm thinking out loud, maybe we found love right where we are. When my hair's all but gone and my memory fades, and the crowds don't remember my name, when my hands don't play the strings the same way, I know you will still love me the same. 'Cause honey, your soul could never grow old, it's evergreen. Baby, your smile's forever in my mind and memory. I'm thinking about how people fall in love in mysterious ways, and maybe it's all part of a plan. Well, I'll just keep on making the same mistakes, hoping that you'll understand. But baby, now take me into your loving arms. Kiss me under the light of 1,000 stars. Place your head on my beating heart. I'm thinking out loud that maybe we found love right where we are. So baby, now take me into your loving arms. Kiss me under the light of 1,000 stars. Oh darling, place your head on my beating heart. I'm thinking out loud that maybe we found love right where we are. Well, maybe we found love right where we are, and we found love right where we are. I took the supermarket flowers from the windowsill. I threw the day old tea from the cup. cracked up the photo album Matthew had made. Memories of a life that's been loved. Took the get well soon cars and stuffed animals. Poured the old ginger beer down the sink. Dad always told me, don't you cry when you're down. But Mum, there's a tear every time that I blink. Oh, I'm in pieces, it's tearing me up. But I know a heart that's broke is a heart that's been loved. So I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mum. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. And when God takes you back, He'll say hallelujah, you're home. I fluffed the pillows, made the bed, stacked the chairs up. Folded your nightgowns neatly in a case. John said he'd drive, then put his hand on my cheek and wiped a tear from the side of my face. And I hope that I see the world as you did, 'cause I know a life with love is a life that's been lived. So I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mum. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. And when God takes you back, He'll say hallelujah, you're home. Hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mum. You got to see the person I have become. Spread your wings and I know that when God took you back, He said hallelujah, you're home. Settle down with me, cover me up, cuddle me in, lie down with me and hold me in your arms. And your heart's against my chest, lips pressed to my neck. I'm falling for your eyes, but they don't know me yet. And with a feeling I forget, I'm in love now. Kiss me like you wanna be loved. You wanna be loved. You wanna be loved. This feels like falling in love. Falling in love. Falling in love. down with me, and I'll be your safety. You'll be my lady. I was made to keep your body warm, but I'm cold as the wind blows. So hold me in your arms. Oh no, my heart's against your chest, your lips pressed to my neck. I'm falling for your eyes, but they don't know me yet. And with this feeling I'll forget I'm in love now. Kiss me like you wanna be loved. You wanna be loved. You wanna be loved. This feels like falling in love. Falling in love. Falling in love.
So the bar is where I go. Me and my friends at the table doing shots, drinking fast, and then we talk slow. And you come over and start up a conversation with just me, and trust me, I'll give it a chance. Now take my hand, stop it, and the man on the jukebox, and then we start to dance. And now I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. Last night you were in my room, and now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. Well, I'm in love with your body. 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 Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. When we came, we let the story begin. We're going out on our first date. You and me are thrifty, so go all you can eat. Fill up your bag and I fill up the plate. We talk for hours and hours about the sweet and the sour, and how your family's doing okay. And leaving, getting a taxi, kissing the backseat, tell the driver make the radio play. And I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. Last night you were in my room, and now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. Well, I'm in love with your body. 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 Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. Come on, be my baby, come on. 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 I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. Last night you were in my room, and now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. Well, I'm in love with you.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
I was always the one dodging phone calls from every girl that I met in my bed. But then you came around like a brick wall. You knocked me out of my head. Had me treating my Mondays like Fridays. Had me flying so high with no smoke. Almost dreaming of you, always with me. Damn it, I feel like a joke. Speaking truthfully, I'm not sure why we keep fighting. You just go blame the bad timing. Admit it to me, speaking truthfully, I love you more than you love me. Getting more of your time was a challenge. Had me begging you like a schoolboy. Started treating me like a bad habit. So now I'm left with no choice. Speaking truthfully, I'm not sure why we keep fighting. You just go blame the bad timing. Admit it to me, speaking truthfully, I love you more than you love me. Now I know there's no use trying to get me and you on the same page. When you say that you love me, you're lying. Speaking truthfully, I'm not sure why we keep fighting. You just go blame the bad timing. Admit it to me, speaking truthfully, I love you more than you love me. I love you more than you love me.
Yeah. Nigga.
Se equivoca de botón, aprieta like y todo el mundo se entera.
Se pasa enviándome fotos con filtros de Instagram.
What the fuck?
Blue Green Legend, or even things like What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This episode number 440. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your limited resources, and joining me on the line, all the way from Denver, Colorado, it's Luis Scott Vargas. Where Luis, you just got out of a some type of sketchy escape room at Raptor's house or something.
So it sounds weird if you don't know what escape rooms are, but what it is escape rooms. Something I've actually talked about on the show before. You have like an hour to get out of a room full of puzzles, basically. And Raptor, Josh Utterlayden, Magic Hall of Famer, Escape Room Hall of Famer as well, actually built an escape room. Like, built is a little strong word. He just basically set up a bunch of different clues and used his condo as kind of the staging ground for that. And so it took us an hour and 8 minutes, but we did manage to escape eventually, which was good for a first run of his room. Like, he had some things he needed to work out and all that, but it was really cool.
That's pretty cool, and I'm glad you made it out because now we get to do the show. Yay! And this week we're highlighting our favorite archetypes from Dominaria, and we're doing a deep dive onto each of them to help explore exactly how these archetypes work, what to look out for, some of the underrated cards, and that kind of stuff for each of them. And then we're also going to talk about just some interactions, tips, tricks, that kind of stuff for Dominaria that we've encountered, maybe just unintuitive things that might not stand out to you, and we're going to go over those as well. First things first, though, the show is brought to you by channelfireball.com, the place to go on the internet for anything you need Magic related. That's right. If you need sealed product, you want to buy a box of Dominaria, Channel Fireball, that's where you want to go. If you want to get some singles, they'll have them at Channel Fireball. Even if you need supplies, limited resources, sleeves, and deck boxes to kind of show off your love of value, you can do that at Channel Fireball. And while you're there, check out some of the great free content right on the front page. Luis, you and I both have draft videos for Dominaria up on the site right now. So does Pascal Maynard. On the other side, in the written section, there's a whole bunch. EDH set review by Rachel Agnes. Drafting with Siggy Dominaria. That's always a often hotly awaited article from Sigris because he's such a limited master and people want to get his thoughts. So you can do that right now over at CFB. And of course, all of that is free right on the front page of channelfireball.com. Please do check them out. Also, the show is brought to you by you. And this is something I say on the show every time. I say it's by you, but it really is. It's by the listeners of this show via the Patreon. That is how this show has been able to grow and survive and stick around, is because of the Patreon. And, of course, I'm always looking for ways to try to give back through the Patreon. So I've been doing a couple of things lately. I've got a couple of more things coming up as well. The last two, the two things that I have done already are I've started posting pictures with like a brief description of decks that I managed to win a trophy with. And I just thought it would be a nice way to show you some of the things that have been successful for me and maybe use it as a little bit of a snapshot on what's going on and what type of decks are kind of floating to the top, at least as I play. Because, I mean, I'm playing all these drafts anyway. I figured we might as well get a little value. So that's on the Patreon feed. So
you're only posting the trophy ones. You're not really cluttering up the feed very often.
Yeah, I could probably bring down the Patreon server if I posted them all. But I figured the highlights were the ones that people would care about the most. And so if you're a patron, any level, you have access to the Patreon feed and you'll be able to see those. And then on top of that, and this also goes for all of our patrons, I've started a Discord. And this is, a popular kind of messaging / voice over IP style service for gamers. And, I'm sure most of you have heard of it, but if you haven't, it's a kind of like a running chat room that you can have for any type of community or topic. And we've got one for limited resources now. And if you're a patron, you can join it. I put a link in, or you might have even been automatically added if you already have Discord. And you get some cool usernames in different colors depending on your patron level and all this kind of stuff. And we're probably going to have a patron-only room on there as well. I'm still toying around with that. It's kind of hard to figure out exactly what the demand is and how that goes. But anyway, this is a neat place where you can stay connected with other people like Luis and I, but also people that just are into limited and into value and into the podcast and that kind of stuff, like-minded people throughout the course of the day. Maybe throw them a question about, hey, I had this draft pick. What should I have taken? Or what do you guys think about this card or whatever? We'll see where it goes. My take on these type of communities is always like, I love putting them out there. And if they fly, then they fly. But I'm not going to try to force it down your throat. If you're interested in it, you know where to find it. And again, thanks to our patrons for helping make that stuff happen as well. Now, one of the things you also get if you're a patron is you get to submit questions for the Patreon question of the week. I just redid that one, the thread for that. So if yours didn't get asked last time, throw it back in there. It's not because we didn't like it. It's just we only have so many questions that we get to answer. So this one comes from Steve, who says, "Hi, Marshall and Luis. I'm a diehard basketball fan. I know you are too." That is true. You like basketball quite a bit, right, Luis? I know you play.
I do. I haven't been playing as much recently, which is a shame, but the weather's getting nice, so I might be back at it.
There you go. And Steve says, in fact, it seems like a lot of Magic players are. Is there something here? Both games are highly interactive and asymmetrical with a huge variety of strategies and feature combining synergistic players and pieces. Or maybe I'm overthinking this. And I think, Steve, no, it's probably not actually that big of a coincidence. Basketball does have some similarities to Magic, and mainly from the strategic standpoint of exploiting weaknesses, from broad strategy of how you're going to put together the cards, or in this case, the players that you're going to use before you actually put them onto the court. Has a similar thing to like deck building, where you're trying to find the best combination, and it's not always obvious. You might think in basketball, well, you just take the 5 best players that you have and put them out there, but that's not actually how it works out. There's a lot of matchup stuff and a lot of things that affect the tempo and the pacing and everything, how it all works. And you'll sometimes see a star player leave a team, be replaced by somebody who plays differently than them, but not nearly as good, and somehow the team gets better. And that is an effect that does happen in basketball sometimes, even though you thought, well, this guy's a star. How could that have happened? Well, that's the kind of thing of synergy, right? Sometimes you pick in a draft, sometimes you pick a deck that isn't, it doesn't have the peak power level of another one, but it's a wizard or it's a vampire or whatever, and it goes better in your deck. So I think there is actually quite a bit there with the strategy. Plus, basketball is just one of the most fun games to watch. It's fast-paced and it's exciting and that kind of stuff too.
It sucks.
Yes, it does not have that in common with Magic.
It's unfair.
No, that part is a lot different. But what I meant was that's probably just why like a lot of people like basketball. He also says, if the Warriors, Rockets, Cavaliers, and Celtics were Dominaria draft decks, what decks would they be? I got a couple of them answered. And these are the 4 teams left. I figure the Cavs would be like a bunch of junkers with Lyra. The Celtics. Go ahead.
And an unbeatable bomb.
An unbeatable bomb. The Celtics are funny. They would be like a bunch of random draft chaff, like a bunch of C grade cards with a really great pilot and the best cards in the sideboard. But somehow still
the Warriors are if your colors are wide open and you just got hooked up. just after. In fact, the person passing to you like doesn't even take the icy manipulator. They just ship it.
Yeah, and you picked a gold card in both of your colors were open, and the Rockets. I guess that they're a team that I don't know, probably has 2 bombs in it and plays too many auras or something like that.
But if they still had Harden, it would be a team full of a deck full of juggernauts just must attack every turn.
That's why I did it.
Yeah, and they do. So there you go.
Yeah,
there you go. It's all Aether gliders or whatever. All right, let's crack a pack here, Luis. I've got this from Brian Nesbitt from Dallas Fort Worth, and this is Rick Kleeman's friend. This is pretty funny. Anyway, let's. Rick is the guy that gave this to me is friends with the director of the Pro Tour. Like the behind-the-scenes director from the booth at the Pro Tour. So when I sit down and when Luis sits down with me on Sundays sometimes to broadcast, we have a voice in our ear, one of many, but the main voice in our ear is the director telling us when we're live on the air, counting down different things, telling us where to go next, feeding us information. And that's Rick. And one of Rick's friends actually came up and said, "Hey, you know Rick?" I said, "I do." And he actually ended up giving me a pack here as well. So that's pretty cool. Let's get into it. First card is Gitu Journey Mage, 2 and a red, 3/2. And when it ETBs, if you control another wizard, it does 2 damage to a player. Card's fine.
Yeah, it's a fine card. I'm hoping not to first pick this.
Definitely. Invoke the Divine. Sure.
Yeah, the Disenchant. I don't mind main decking this, but I'm certainly not looking to first pick it.
Yeah, same. Vodalian Arcanist. This is the 1 and a blue 1/3 that is a wizard, and that actually comes up pretty often. It taps to add a colorless mana that you can only spend on instants or sorceries. I see this on the battlefield I think a little more than I anticipated it to, and it seems to hold its own okay. It's like near the top of the random 1/3s, of which there are many in this set.
Yeah, it's a fine card.
Yeah, not first picking it though. Radiant Lightning, that's the 3 damage to a player, 1 damage to each creature they control. Fine sideboard card, but no. Windgrace Acolyte, 4 and a black, 3/2 flyer. Mill yourself for 3, gain 3 life. No, not first picking it. Pierce the Sky, that's the plummet of the set. We're not first picking that either. By the way, it's notably not plummet. It actually deals 7 damage. I actually found myself in a situation where my opponent's creature was too big. I'm like, what the? Like, just give me a plummet, man. Feral Abomination.
5/5.
This card is an abomination.
For 6. Yeah, we're not first picking this.
God, man, I've had to play that a couple of times recently, and it's not fun. Ugh. Corrosive Ooze, another bad card. My God. 1 and a green, 2/2.
And Windgrace Acolyte right now. Of all these cards.
This is bad. All right, I am going to upgrade you, Luis, because our next card is absolutely first pickable. It's Vicious Offering.
Yeah, this is a fine card. It's 1 and a black, give a creature -2/2 at instant speed, and you can pay kicker of sacking a creature and give the creature you targeted -5/5 instead. Yeah, this is a fine first pickable removal spell. Like all the different removal spells that come in are pretty close. There's a range, and this is on the higher end of that range.
Agreed. Yeah. Short Sword, 1 mana for an equipment. Costs 1 to equip. Creature gets +1/+1. It sees some play, and I think it's not an unplayable card. But I got to tell you, I've never really been happy with it. Its impact is just enough so that you're not embarrassed. But I never want I like the Joust a lot.
Yes, jousting lands is much better.
Yeah. That one actually has a good long-term effect. Oh goodness sakes! How about our first uncommon is very similar to Vicious Offering.
Cast down.
That's right.
Yeah, this is 1 in the black to kill a non-legendary creature at instant speed. I like this more than Vicious Offering. It doesn't kill everything you want to kill, but it's cheap and it's effective. So I think it is better overall.
Yeah, me too. That's where I'm at. Next one is Memorial to War. This is the red land. It's the worst of the cycle. I don't think it's really playable. It's the one that destroys a land for 4 and a red and sack it. Here's Ryan's card, the one that he designed, the First Eruption. It's also the first one out of the pack because we're not taking it. But this is the one that does 1 damage to each creature without flying and then adds double red. This is a saga, of course. And then at the end, you sack a mountain and it does 3 damage to each creature. Sideboard at best, although I admit I've never actually seen it on the battlefield.
This card's particularly good, and I think it's a pretty easy cast down here. One thing I do want to know.
But we do have our legend, though. Yeah, and it's a nice one.
Is it better?
Yeah, I actually do think it's a better card, yes. But it's gold, so I don't know if we want to do it. It's Raph Capuchin, Ship's
Oh, yeah, I would.
You're going to slam Raph over Cast Down?
I think right now I probably would, but my guess is that Cast Down is actually better. I just want to play with Raph Capuchin a little bit. I played against Raph a bunch of times. All right. Well, I would still take Cast Down, I think. I would want to take Raph, and that is likely what I would do if I was just drafting online. But if you want to win,
but it's Friday at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, I'm taking Cast Down. Single color, and I think slightly worse. I think 3/3 flash that gives a bunch of your cards flash. That is also a legend for all the things that matter. Is a little better, but not by much.
I mean, you know how I make these decisions.
The head-to-head can't kill Raph with Cast Down.
Put him in the arena. Can't kill it, so Raph it is. Windmill slam. I'm taking it.
I also wanted to bring up.
What were you going to say?
Got into this conversation on Twitter where a pretty frequent thing people go back to is let's say Raph wasn't in the pack, right? We had the same pack minus Raph. Yeah. If we took Cast Down, we could basically guarantee the person to our left would take Vicious Offering. And does that make us want to take something else instead? And the answer is almost always no. You really just should not be worried about what the couple people to your left are taking. Yes, in a perfect world, if there's an exact tie, then maybe that's a tiebreaker. But for the most part, you're more concerned about picking up the signals from the person on your right than you are on what signals you're giving to the person on your left. Because, I've had drafts where I pass Adeliz the Cinderwind, right? The blue-red gold card. Take something else, and then third pick, there's another Adeliz. At that point, I'm probably going to take her because that is a really good signal that Blue-Red Wizards is open and she's great. The fact that the person on my left might be drafting it just does not enter into the calculation to a great degree. And in fact, the degree is small enough that for most people who are wondering this or worried about this, they're better served for now by not calculating it at all. Just ignoring it completely, because this is how you get people taking Vicious Offering over Sarah Angel because the pack also has like a Blinding Light and a Night of Grace. And
exactly, yes.
And you're not doing yourself a service there. So
yeah, and this is one of the biggest skills that you can learn too. And I'm not talking about specifically what Luis is saying, but it's the ability to apply concepts, right? This is where you can really screw yourself up because like people like us, people that draft a whole lot, we like to concentrate on the minutia, right? Because like once you kind of understand the big picture pieces, some of the more interesting and some of the things that actually change your mind are the exceptions. And those are things like this, where like it's fun if you understand everything that's going on to say, oh, there's actually a tiebreaker here. I'm going to take the card that I'm not passing to my left to improve my chances of getting a slightly better second pack. But if you really understand the concept, that in order for that to come back as like a real return to you, a lot of things have to go in a certain direction where the player has to pick up on that. Let's just say they don't care and they just pass it. It's like there's a whole lot that could go wrong, and that at best it's a tiebreaker. But it's when you understand the concept but not the weight of it that you really can screw yourself up. And again, I think that it's something that people should really be mindful of in practice is applying concepts in games and in life as well, and understanding the weight that each one carries, because this is a real concept. It just doesn't carry that much weight.
Exactly. So just a kind of a side note while we got into the Crack-A-Pack, but
all right. So let's get into so it was kind of cool because you sent me an email earlier in the week and you had highlighted your 5 favorite archetypes, and they lined up exactly with the ones that I want to be in as well. So I was like, great, we're going to hammer these ones because these are what I've been doing well with. I mean, the last trophy I got was actually red-white, which isn't on here. And I don't really like it that much. I'll be honest with you, Luis. I think I just got a little lucky. Like honestly, my deck wasn't that great.
Red-white over the last bunch of formats has always felt to me like the deck where if you draw 6 lands and the rest are spells, like you'll probably win, but it doesn't have a lot of control over that and not a great plan when you flood out.
Yeah, exactly. And this felt that way. I mean, I don't know. I had the uncommon, what's her name? I don't remember. But
Tiana, Ship's Caretaker? Yeah,
that's the one. And the card's fine, right? It's not great. Like it doesn't, none of these, some of the gold cards really, we just had Raf Capuchin in our deck. I mean, that card's good. Like that thing will eat a creature and then let you, really wreak havoc, and it hits hard in the air and it's like aggressively. I mean, there's a lot to like, Slimefoot the Stowaway, this is a card that can really dominate the late part, the extreme late game. And I don't know, Tiana doesn't do those things. And that's just kind of like stage one. And especially when, in fact, before we get into this one, I have to ask you about the red-white deck. How often do you encounter not just a red-white archetype, but one that's actually trying to do the thing that red-white is proposing to do?
The auras and equipment thing?
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't even think that's the best auras deck because Arcane Flight is a much more effective aura than all the rest. I played against aggressive red-white decks and played with them, but they don't usually seem like they're leaning too heavily on the auras theme. Like sometimes they'll have Valduk, the 3/2 that makes you a 3/1 for every aura equipment on it, and that does end up working out fine for the deck. But for the most part, it's just kind of a red-white curve beatdown deck that sometimes will play a Sarah Angel in 5 and sometimes won't, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of been my take. Okay, let's get back to our the ones that we actually want to talk about, though. The first one I wanted to bring up, green, black, I called it Sacralings, but whatever. The Sacrifice / Sapralings / Go
I just
Wide.
assumed that was a typo.
Yeah, it's not. That was just cleverness pouring out onto the screen. So this is like a grindy tokens kind of deck that takes advantage of multiple creatures from single cards, right? Yavimaya Sapherd and Saproling Migration, like these cards that give you multiple bodies out of one card, plus mixing that, and often these are from that Saproling / Fungus payoffs, to either overwhelm the board and attack, which is one way that you can win with this, or on the other end of the spectrum completely, grind the game to a crushing halt and generate this like long-term advantage. It is funny because I would say about 3/4 of the time I'm in that second camp, the one where I'm trying to kind of grind things out. But you do have these draws where you just put like a whole bunch of creatures on the battlefield, pump them up, and just overwhelm your opponent occasionally too, which is weird because those aren't. I don't really associate those two things together.
No, it's not an aggro deck, but yeah, it is capable of curving out. And it's got some draws, especially ones involving a Elfheim Druid that taps for 2 green for kickers, where you're just like migrationing on turn 4 and then casting Wild Onslaught kicked on turn 6, and that's without having any other help. So the deck can go pretty wide. One of the things I want to note about the deck, and one of the reasons I like it a lot, is that it gets to splash off of from the ashes, or grow from the ashes mainly, but also, it likes a Skittering Surveyor just like everyone else. And sometimes you can play Llanowar Envoy, the 3/2 that filters mana. And the deck is poised to take advantage of, off-color Sheevan Fires, or like Tatiova, the blue-green legend, or even things like Blessed Light or Shalai. Like, it just gets to play these cards. And one of the advantages that comes with that in this format in particular is there's just tons of really powerful cards, and you don't always get to play them. Like, I started a draft yesterday with Blessed Light, Eviscerate, Adeliz the Cinderwind. Like, those are my first 3 picks.
Okay, a little awkward.
Just ended up straight blue-red wizards, but it just so happens there's just a lot of powerful cards, and you're frequently not going to be able to play all of them.
Yeah.
So
that happens.
Yeah, it's a pretty big advantage to be able to do so, and this deck does it at a higher rate than most decks.
It does. You mentioned the spells that can fix the mana, but on top of it, it's, again, I consider it its baseline game plan of having the game go really long also makes it more likely that you'll find the time needed to find those lands and stuff too, because it just goes with your plan. Control decks generally can splash a little better, given that they're trying to get to turn 12 or 14 or whatever, where if you're an aggro deck and you're trying to splash, it's kind of like you just have to draw that splash at the right time, or else you're sitting there falling behind. Some of the key commons for this are Deathbloom Thallid, a card that I've been really impressed with. You'll actually see that one come up multiple times because it's just such a solid card in so many different types of decks. But here it's really good. It's a fungus. It replaces itself with a Saproling, so it's just hard to get rid of, and you can maintain a board presence. We mentioned Saproling Migration. That's the 1 and a green, make 2 1/1 saps, or you can kick it for another 4 and get 4 of them. Yavimaya Sapherd, the 2/2 fungus that brings along a 1/1. And then to a lesser degree, though this is kind of the deck that wants it, is Thallid Omnivore. And that's the one that's a 3/3 for 4, and you can pay a mana and sack a creature to give it +2/+2. And if it was a Thallid, then you gain 2 life as well. The payoffs, right, for having all of these little creatures, the most explosive one and the stupid draws are always Song of Freyalise, because this is the deck.
Yeah, it's one of the best uncommons,
like, where you never get,
and this is the deck that uses it by far the best.
Exactly. And you just it is so disgusting when you get to go off. Less so, but still, you mentioned it a minute ago, Wild Onslaught, the 3 and a green, put a +1/+1 counter on each of your creatures at instant speed, and you can kick it
Song of Freyalise, though I guess it costs more also, so...
Yeah. So it's worse, but costs more. It's like, we're bad consumers. But still, this is a way that you can leverage having 5, 6, 7, 1/1s on the battlefield. And then another really good one is Spore Crown Thallid. That's a 1 and a green that gives +1, 2/2 that gives +1/+1 to all your funguses and saprolings as well. So those are kind of your primary payoffs for the whole go wide thing. But again, the main way that you win is that this thing becomes like a full-on grind fest, and it includes Slimefoot the Stowaway, which we talked about. This is one of the key cards because it gives you a steady stream of creatures and also kind of punishes your opponent for attacking or blocking, or if you can get sacrifice outlets going, like Thallid Omnivore that I mentioned, or Thallid Soothsayer. That one's the one where you can sack a creature to draw a card. And if you can get that rolling with Slimefoot, if you get enough mana rolling, and like Luis said, you actually do play some mana ramp in this deck as well, then you can get a card advantage engine going, especially if you get fungal plots going that lets you sack 2 saprolings to gain 2 life and draw a card. You don't actually need to have that much going on in the graveyard if you can generate a bunch with like Slimefoot the Stowaway or whatever, and you can get a real engine rolling where your opponent's losing a lot of life, you're gaining life, and you're drawing cards, and you're not even having to attack at that point, because again, you're trying to gum up the ground game. And this deck's really, really good at doing that. One thing that it can have a weakness to, though, are flyers. You've got Mammoth Spider, and you've got Pierce the Sky, besides your normal removal spells. But those are about the only ones that really, that you can really like rely on to make sure that you don't die to flyers, because you have to use removal on other stuff sometimes. And again, since it really does do a great job of gumming up the ground, make sure that you're patient with your removal and you don't just lose to like a random 3/2 flyer because you got a little bit too frisky, with your eviscerate or whatever and killed something.
Yeah, I also want to note that Thallid Omnivore is your kind of a backstop against flyers, just because it can start eating saplings and gaining 2 life, and you can win the race. You've got a section later of cards you should be valuing higher, and Thallid Omnivore is one I would add to that list.
Okay, yeah, so we'll put that one on there. Just to break down how the deck goes, just really quickly, I run 17 lands in these decks, sometimes 16 if I have like Llanowar Elves and Elfham Druid or something, but usually 17. This is a creature deck. 12 to 15 creatures is where you want to be, but you have to remember that creatures also count cards like Saproling, Migration, and Spore Swarm. Like I'm counting those as creatures in here.
Completely count as creatures. I think that when you sort them, they should just be in your creature pile. There's no real reason not to do that.
Exactly. I don't play combat tricks in this deck. I just don't. There's none that I really want.
Get is fungal infection.
Yeah, and I consider that a removal spell. I mean, I'm not saying if you put a Gift of Growth in this deck, it would be a disaster. I'm just saying it's not a priority.
It would be a disaster.
Yeah, maybe. And then, of course, you want the good black removal. And I have noticed also that Ancient Animist doesn't perform particularly well here. You do end up with a bunch of small to medium-sized creatures and less of the really big ones, though sometimes your deck will give that to you and go ahead and run it. And then last but not least, cards that you should be valuing higher for this archetype. So you mentioned the Thallid Omnivores on your list.
Yeah, this list is basically just all the Thallids. Thallid Omnivore, Sporecrown Thallid, Thallid Soothsayer, Wild Onslaught, and Fungal Plots. So
yeah, these are basically cards that you don't want in other archetypes is kind of how I see it. Like, look, obviously you're going to value your removal spells, your bombs, your big, it's the cards, the ones that we want to highlight for this section are ones that are specifically good in this deck that aren't really, like Sporecrown Thallid in a not Thallid's deck is fine, but, you would take any removal spell over it.
The one reason I think that Omnivore should be valued a little higher is I've found that card to be effective in other decks as well. It's just a powerful card.
Yeah. I think so too. And so you need to make sure you do it. All right. So that's it for green black. Next one is white black. I don't really have an archetype name for this. I just called it stuff. I
think
do you have a theme that you see? Is there a
I believe this qualifies as historic. I think that a lot of there's white black decks that are similar to what you describe here, where just good removal spells and a decent curve of creatures, but the white black decks that lean on Cabal Paladin, the 4/2 that pings them for 2, and then the Diagonant Trapper, the 3/2 that taps a creature. Those are real decks, and I do think that they can end up playing out pretty nicely.
Okay. Well, the one that I'm the way that I've been drafting it is this is basically the deck that has access to the best removal in the set. And also tends to have access to the best bombs, like the highest upside, insane bombs tend to be in these two colors as well. Not that there's not in others, but boy, the peak on the removal and the bombs in this archetype is very, very high. I think that, if you were to ask me what color pair would I like at like a sealed deck for a GP or something, and you told me you're going to get a really good version, I would definitely say white black, just because really good version just can't the bombs are so insane up top, and then I'm going to have some combination of really good removal spells here. And it turns out the filler stuff is actually pretty good too. The archetype doesn't have a ton of synergy. I think you highlighted the most synergistic that it can be.
And even then, it's about 4 of the creatures that care about historic, and maybe 1 or 2 cards you wouldn't have played otherwise. Maybe random Partic. 5/5 Trample, Partic Sentinel, Partic Wanderer, sneaks its way in. But for the most part, you're not in a position where you're not playing sparring construct very often. You're not going quite that far. You're just playing your short sword and jousting lands that you would have already played. And like I said, maybe one thing gets in that wouldn't have otherwise. But this is still not a very strong synergy deck.
Yeah, it's low on synergy. And, you know, so what that means is, of course, is that it really has to stand on the strength of its cards. But the good news is it has some pretty darn strong cards. So that's pretty good. Now, for the key commons, normally I don't reference removal here very much because unless the removal is specific to the deck, but like unconditional or just good removal, you know, as a listener, that that's stuff that you need to go get. But the crazy part about this color pair is that the removal is so good. You get Blessed Light, Eviscerate, Vicious Offering, Fungal Infection, and